announced that he would shortly be celebrating his 11th birthday with a party of special magnificence. There was much talk and excitement in Hobbiton. 11 is pretty old. Even I'm not that old yet. I won't be 11 for another 50 years, but at least I will be 61 this year. Maybe that's special. So maybe I should announce a party of special magnificence in September. And maybe there will be much talk and excitement in Mountain View. It's kind of a wonder to me that I'm actually going to have a 61st birthday after all. We announced the Perl 6 project back in the year 2000, nearly 15 years ago. Since then, I have survived 2 cancers, 2 cataract surgeries, 2 retinal surgeries, 2 economic downturns, and 2 layoffs. Also 2 grandkids. But a third's on the way. And it seems I've done everything in 2s. Even last year I had double pneumonia, but maybe that's cheating. So I'm going to be talking today about the number 2. Maybe you thought I was going to talk about some other number, like maybe 6, and the letters T and L. Indeed, you might have even thought I was going to talk about Perl today. I'm much too self-centered for that. Those of you who have been paying attention to my talks over the years should know that by now that all my talks are really about me and what you think of me. Say, how do you like my new dude? Longest my hair's ever been. The wonderful thing about Larry's is Larry's are wonderful things. But the most wonderful thing about Larry's is I'm the only one. I'm so vain. I bet you think this song is about me. Well, maybe there are a few other Larrys in the world. You know, Larry Ellison, Larry Owen Hurley, Larry the Cucumber. Okay, I lied. I'm not just interested in me. I'm also interested in everything else. And everyone else. Well, almost everyone else, maybe not Larry Ellison. So I'd like to talk about everything and everyone too today. But today mostly I want to talk about Tolkien, because Tolkien also comes in 2s. Those of you who love Tolkien do so primarily because he wrote 2 stories. You may have heard of them. So maybe we'll talk about 6 anyway, since Peter Jackson made the Tolkien books into 6 movies. And yeah, technically, the Lord of the Rings itself is presented in 6 books, generally bound together into 2s. There's that 2 again. You know, I can get into this numerology thing. Let's see, how about 5? Let's see, we could compare Perl 5 to the Battle of 5 Armies. Yeah, we could do that. We could say, oh, like, the battle, Perl 5 was the confluence of many competing cultural forces, and in both cases, the result wasn't exactly pretty. Well, you know, that's sort of all obvious if you know anything about Perl 5. Now really, if we're going to do comparisons between Tolkien's works and mine, Perl 5 is kind of like The Hobbit, and Perl 6 is like The Lord of the Rings. At least that's how I think of it. Maybe you prefer to keep them further apart. Anyway, 2 related stories, 2 computer languages. There really are many parallels. Sorry, 2 Unicode tricks. Well, except for the sorry part. Now, where was I? Parallels. It took Tolkien roughly 15 years to write his sequel. And, oddly enough, it's been nearly 15 years since the end of the Perl 6 effort. Coincidence? I think not. Anyway, if you're young enough, if you're just now seeing the Hobbit movies for the first time, then you're very lucky. Or reading them if you're old school. Well, I suppose if you're that young, you're probably not old school. Retro school, maybe. Anyway, if you're not just starting, you're lucky. Because it means you don't have to wait 15 years for the sequel to come out. It's already out. The rest of us already did all that waiting for you. waiting for me before I could even read. Yay, other people. So here's the general principle. It doesn't matter to you at all if something took N years to develop, if those N years are now over. Or, in the case of Perl 6, very nearly almost over. Pretty soon now. 15 years is not so very long. You should be glad that I looked at this Tolkien metaphor for this talk. I could have picked a different metaphor, such as the children of Israel wandering around in the wilderness for 40 years before we get to the Promised Land. That would give us, 25 more years to work out the kinks in Perl 6. And that metaphor would make me Moses. You know about Moses, who was said to be the humblest man on the face of the earth. That fits. So I get to carry around this impressively big stick that can part the Red Sea. You know, I'm not so sure about those 2 stone tablets. Those could get kind of heavy. But I get to be important, and I get to make other big pronouncements, besides the 10 big ones that you know about. What was it said? Speak loudly and carry a big stick. Unfortunately, in that scenario, I would also have to go up to Mount Nebo and drop dead right before we get to the Promised Land, and that would kind of suck. Plus, I don't really have any commandments for you, maybe a few suggestions. But maybe I can still make a few pronouncements too today. For example, I could announce that we should get ready to party. And we should do that because, actually, this is just a pre-announcement of the pre-announcement. So you don't wander off in the middle of my talk. Announcements. What's that remind me of? I'm getting as bad as old barley and butter. One thing drags out another, you know. Oh yeah, a long-expected party. Actually, you know, it began with an unexpected party before that. I don't like having to have as well as you deserve, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Bilbo's story starts with the unexpected party, not a long-expected party. 2 books, 2 parties. I guess Tolkien liked parties. I like parties too. Maybe we should have a party, or 2 parties. That would be nice. But not right now. Back to those mountains. As most of us know by now, The Hobbit is all about Bilbo's trip to the Lonely Mountain. Similarly, The Lord of the Rings is about Frodo's trip to Mount Doom. This correspondence is really no accident, because great authors steal plots, and Tolkien was so great he stole from himself. Many of the plot elements of The Lord of the Rings are borrowed straight from The Hobbit. They say imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Certainly you have to be very sincere to flatter yourself successfully. So what are the other similarities? Well, they're both stories of the start at home and end at home. Both stories about how great it is to be a normal hobbit. Both stories start with a party. In both stories, they go to Rivendell to get advice on their further travels. The travel party then tries to go through a snowy pass. The party goes underground instead and fights with nasties there, etc., 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 etc. You know, both books are about coming of age after you're supposedly already grown up. I can deeply empathize with that. I'm still trying to figure out this business of growing up my own self. Well, maybe I've got another 50 years. And this resonates with Perl on a deep level. We designed Perl to be a language that you can learn as you go. The language acts a bit like Middle-earth itself, presenting you with larger challenges as you become ready to meet them. Or maybe a little before you're quite ready to meet them, if you're a hobbit. Hobbits are good at that. Structurally, both of Tolkien's books are episodic quests with new creatures to deal with every chapter or so. In The Hobbit, Bilbo learns to deal with wizards, dwarves, trolls, giants, goblins. Well, I guess there's only one golem. And goblins are like tigers too. But the most wonderful thing about golems is we're the only one, my precious. Wargs, eagles, werebears, well I guess there's only one of them too, bad trees, spiders. The spiders, of course, designed the original Wood Wide Web. Selfish elves, selfish humans, selfish dwarves, and of course, a selfish dragon. Similarly, in The Lord of the Rings, the hobbits learn over time to deal with a battle tree, a barrow-wight, men, midges, elves, crows, cranky wizards, orcs, balrogs, well, at least one, dead wizards, elves who live too long, men who live too short, trees who walk and talk, resurrected wizards, worm-tongues, golemses, orcses, more orcses, oh yes, my precious. Spiders is, well, there's really only one spider this time. The Shelob is big enough to make up for it. But the most wonderful thing about spiders, no, let's just not go there. More orcses. Eagles, kings, minstrels. Well, you know how the story goes. And goes, and goes, and goes. But for all its length, The Lord of the Rings is still basically a reimagining of The Hobbit. And we have a phrase for this kind of reimagining. You might think of it as the second system syndrome, except that Tolkien actually finished it. He figured out how to do the second system syndrome and make it work. So, Perl 6 is also kind of proudly a second system. In fact, one of our many slogans is second system syndrome done right. By which we mean that we expect to take a long time, but we also expect the project to converge on a solution. Eventually. By Christmas. We just never say it here. Similarly, when we compare Perl 5 and Perl 6, you can see many places where the Perl 6's underlying principles are stolen straight from Perl 5. You know, it's kind of an oddly useful language. It still uses sigils as noun markers. It's an operator-rich language. It's very expressive, but still winnable. It triggers its visual distinctions of different things should look different. And easy things should be easy, hard things should be possible. It's multi-paradigmatic, scalable, practical, blah, blah, blah. But there's also some profound differences between Perl 5 and Perl 6. Just as there are differences between The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. Let's look at the two books first. First of all, stakes are much higher in The Lord of the Rings. In The Hobbit, everyone is a bit silly, and pretty much everyone is driven by simple greed. The dwarves, the dragon, the goblins, the elves, the men, even Bilbo. So it's actually rather surprising at the end when Bilbo decides to be unselfish instead. But the end of The Hobbit is still like, you're a very small hobbit in a very large world. It's all just sort of little, low stakes. We all kind of start out like Bilbo. We're pretty comfy in our little hobbit holes, but we're largely motivated by what we'll get out of life, and sometimes that leads us out of our comfort zones. Like Bilbo, some of us discover that just getting stuff is boring, and the real fun starts when you start giving stuff away instead. Free software is a good way to do that. So, what are you worth? Now, some of you may know that it was my privilege to help in some ways with the founding of the free and open source movement. And by any conservative estimate, the net worth of what I've given away can be measured in billions of dollars. And it's much harder to accumulate billions of dollars and then give them away. I couldn't have done that. There's no way I could accumulate that much unless I was Bill Gates, and I'm not. I don't think I could even do it if I was Larry Gates. But it wouldn't make me nearly as happy, so I found an easier way to do it. But as I measure my own worth by what I can give others, what I get from them is not important in that equation. Hence the old saying, it's more blessed to give than to receive. My, how dreary that sounds. We need to update that slogan. Helping other people is forking awesome. Or something like that. That's one nice thing we've learned recently. It used to be that fork was kind of a dirty word. You didn't want it to happen to your project. But nowadays, fork is no longer a four-letter word. Nowadays we encourage forks, especially on GitHub, but forking successfully is actually much more work than it seems. For instance, various people over the last some years have tried to fork Perl 5 to produce their own Perl-like language, but with not much success. On the other hand, Peter Jackson was much more successful with his fork of the Hobbit. Of course, he had a few more resources for that. If we tried it, we'd have ended up with Net Hobbit, Free Hobbit, Open Hobbit, and so on. But the Hobbit has certain fundamental flaws which are addressed in The Lord of the Rings. Specifically, in a chapter called The Shadow of the Past. Here we find out that what Bilbo thought was harmless turns out to be a really bad thing. The Ring of Power. It gets you. The surface facts of the first book are reinterpreted as being about something bigger, something deeper, older, more fundamental. In a similar way, many of the reasons people like Perl are deeper than the surface features they think they like. When you learn a more expressive language, then you can be more expressive in it. But Perl 5 was certainly an imperfect embodiment of that notion. Oddly, Perl 5 and The Hobbit share a particular weakness, which is that they both repackage a lot of current culture without questioning how it all fits together. In The Hobbit's case, various old notions about how trolls and fairies and goblins and such behave. In the case of Perl 5, I adapted many existing cultural notions about, like regular expressions and such, from Unix and the precedence table from C, which has its flaws. And later we saw some of those flaws as we started using it. Like Bilbo, Perl succeeded in the beginning by being invisible some of the time. What do I mean by that? Culturally speaking, it blended in with Unix culture while at the same time violating some of Unix culture's modernistic reductionist principles. On the other hand, Perl kept its type system invisible from the user, and far too often from itself. As we say in Perl 6 land, it's okay if the user is confused about the type of something, but it's not so fine if the computer is also confused. So one of the big upgrades with Perl 6 is fixing the type system. With The Lord of the Rings, Tolkien rethinks all of these old memes and reintegrates them into an original worldview. Similarly, Perl 6 takes many of the cultural assumptions of Perl 5 and reintegrates them to fit together better. Perhaps one of the most radical reformulations happened in the area of regular expressions, or pattern matching. They're not really regular, of course, which were already a huge mess in Unix culture before Perl ever got hold of them. Perl 6 patterns are completely redesigned and are now powerful enough to write complete grammars in. In fact, these patterns are powerful enough that Perl 6 parses itself with them. I think it's extremely ironic that just when other languages are starting to borrow Perl 5 regular expressions to get better pattern matching, Perl 6 is abandoning those very regular expressions in favor of something more readable, powerful, and integrated. But this really only begins to scratch the surface of the differences. Sometimes people ask us, what makes Perl 6 better than Perl 5? Yeah, how to answer that. It's like trying to list all the ways Tolkien improved as a writer between the two books. It's like trying to come up with an elevator pitch for Middle-earth. Eventually you give up and just say, just read the book. Tolkien is one of these romantic writers, which means you can't just explain his world. You really kind of have to experience it to understand it. Perl, and especially Perl 6, is a bit like that too. As Lynn Carter said in an intro to Lord of the Rings, I want to go live there, meaning Middle-earth. People who come to Perl 6 want to live there too. The on-ramps are not hard, but they are kind of long on-ramps. Perl is always optimized for expressiveness over learnability because you only have to learn the language once, but you can use it many times. But many folks who do make it up that on-ramp so far seem to be happy on the freeway. But movies are more immersive, so maybe we should get Peter Jackson to make Perl 6, The Fellowship of the Butterfly. If he did, here are some of the correspondences that Peter Jackson might highlight. Don't overspecify. In The Lord of the Rings, Tolkien learned not to overspecify, but to rely on the reader's imagination. In The Hobbit, we have trolls talking in a Cockney accent, and it just completely blows away the mood. When we get in The Lord of the Rings, we get black riders that crawl around and sniff the air because he didn't say what they were. In Perl 6, we have a number of constructs whose purpose is to underspecify how to do things. For instance, in the future, multi-core programming will rely heavily on code that does not overspecify order of execution. Therefore, we have hyperoperators and junctional types and other things that merely promise to produce a result, but do not promise what order they will do it. That's also kind of creepy. In The Hobbit, various races are pretty much typecast into stereotypical behavior. Elves act like elves, and the dwarves act like dwarves. In The Lord of the Rings, though, Tolkien developed much more finesse in his characterizations of, his characters. We find elves and dwarves playing contrary to type and learning to be friends, and we find that rangers are really the descendants of kings who decided to make themselves useful. The type system in Perl 6 is also much more developed than in Perl 5. Not only do we have a built-in type system, much like Moose, but a complete meta-object protocol that allows us to generate new types of types and map those types to various underlying data models using representational polymorphism. A lot of fancy words. But you can go really deep if you want. You don't have to. This is an addition to the built-in support for roles, traits, subset types, enumeration types, and standard classification-based types. But really, none of these are really built-in types. Even the metaclasses themselves are defined in terms of metaclasses and representations. Meta dispatch policy is also similarly flexible, and so on and so on. Almost every feature is designed with feature evolution of the language in mind. In another of life's great ironies, however, after Perl 6 goes to such great pains to be the most extensible language ever, it then turns around and provides enough built-ins that you shouldn't want to extend it very often. We don't really care if Perl is your first language, but we really like it if it's your last language. This extensibility extends to the language itself. The Hobbit kind of mushes together all of its languages. But in The Lord of the Rings, Tolkien worries a great deal about the languages of Middle-earth, and is always trying to get the right linguistic tone in each passage, whether it's Elvish, Dwarvish, or even Orcish, Naz. The same progress is true from Perl 5 to Perl 6. Perl 5 continually lies to itself about what is parsing, which means it's often doing multi-pass parsing internally on the same text, slightly modified. And this means that Perl 5 often doesn't know exactly what language it's dealing with, and this leads to a world of hurt. For example, all the agony about how references are interpolated into strings, and how these strings are later reparsed as regular expressions. In contrast, Perl 6 always knows exactly what language it's using in any particular spot. So let me illustrate the difference. Here's some Perl 5 code to remove duplicate words. Oh my gosh, he's actually going to talk about Perl. Here we match a word boundary followed by a word, some white space, and the same word. Note that the back reference on the left side, \1, and $1 on the right side are really the same substring. But we can't refer to them the same way because of the crazy interpolation and reparsing rules in Perl 5. Here's the same thing in Perl 6. Lined up. Note first, we don't need the /x to allow white space because that's already the default. In fact, it's kind of mandatory. The word boundary markers are now oriented in direction, and the back references now start at 0 rather than 1 because it's really just sugar for subscripting into the current match object. But the important thing to notice here is that we can match $0 literally inside the pattern now. Patterns are no longer strings. They are a language in their own right, one of the many sub-languages in Perl 6. Parsed, just like the main language is parsed. It's all done with one-pass parsing, switching to a sub-language in a scope, and then back out again at the end of the scope. Kind of like The Lord of the Rings has all these other languages of the elves, dwarves, orcs mixed in from time to time. In fact, mixed in is more apt than you think. All of the sublanguages in this parser are actually work by mixing in the appropriate methods to parse and implement their sublanguage. The grammar automatically writes a lexer for you, so that you don't have to write up one separately. All this happens just in time, so you can change languages on the fly. In theory, a single declaration could turn your Perl 6 program into Python or Java or any of those other orcish languages. Just kidding. Kind of. But this works on more subtle scales as well. For instance, it's trivial to add a factorial operator. Here, the function body just multiplies all the numbers from 2 to n with a reduction operator. You might wonder offhand if it works right when $n is 1. Yes, it does, because Perl 6 knows how to find the identity value for multiplication. That's cool, but that's not the interesting part, really. This code actually mixes in a new grammar rule into the old grammar that you were parsing with. It writes a new lexer for you and installs it as a new language at the time in time for the next statement to use it. Of course, it prints this, since we support arbitrary precision now. In fact, it installs your new language even before the body of the function so that you can use your new language to define itself. Here's the more classical recursive definition. Notice the red here. We can use a new notation even though we're not done defining it. This all works because Perl 6 knows precisely which language is parsing at any point, whether you're talking about operators or regular expressions or the various sublanguages. And I think that's really the killer feature of Perl 6, and the feature that will allow Perl 6 to evolve into the future for a good many years yet. You are limited only by your imaginations and by the tempers of your colleagues who will have to put up with your pretensions to the rank of language designer. Those of us who design languages successfully know that there are a great many people out there who think they can design a successful computer language. But it's not really just about the technology. To design can't even say successful. How can I design a language? To design a successful computer language, you really have to be a world builder like Tolkien was. You're really making a new playground where people can play. You also have to have a team of companions like Frodo and the Fellowship of the Ring. Now, I've been talking about Tolkien up to now, so it sounds like I'm the only one who's been creating Perl. Far from it. That would be like Frodo going to Mordor all alone. Hundreds of people have contributed heavily to Perl 5. And likewise, on the Perl 6 IRC channel right now, we have about 200 people logged in. Of course, many of those are lurkers and occasional contributors, but many of them spend far too much of their time helping me, and excuse me, okay. Not just by doing what I say, I learn from them too. Information flows in every direction and at every scale. Many designers use a waterfall chart for their design methodology, but we use a whirlpool instead. Every experimental implementation produces tweaks in design and tests and documentation, and vice versa. And we've had a number of successful experiments like that. So even though projects like PUGS and Nietzsche are no longer on the leading edge, we've learned many valuable lessons from them. In the Perl 6 community live lots of hobbits, elves, dwarves, and wizards, and of course the occasional troll. And we all work hard to find ways to get along, except maybe the troll. You don't always have to agree with your companions on the road, but it certainly helps to be agreeable even when you disagree. One of the things that Tolkien is always keenly aware of in his stories is the timing of things. He gets the calendar right. He gets the seasons and the phases of the moon right. Much of his plot turns on the timing of things. Both books have the characters either waiting because they have too much time or hurrying on because they don't have enough time. After the breaking of the fellowship, one part of the fellowship is tearing across the fields of Rohan at top speed, while Frodo and Sam are creeping slowly over the hills of the enemy people, trying to get down to the dead marshes, where progress will be even slower. Even when our heroes are making steady progress on the journey, each putting one foot in front of another or rowing down the river, they always get this foreboding sense that the clock is ticking. Whenever the plot breaks into concurrent threads, Tolkien always shows the entanglement of those threads to the reader in various ways. You might have two different groups viewing the same sunset, or a body floating by on the river in a canoe, or the glow of a palantir up in the tower, or Nazgul screaming out at Minas Morgul and flying out over Gondor. So much of the stories depend on precise timing. Both stories, in fact. You know, exact moment at which the trolls are going to get turned to stone. Meeting Gollum just when he's lost his ring. Getting the dwarves into the barrels just in time. And of course the eagles have timing as an art. Those eagles, good grief. I think they're just show-offs who always have to arrive at the nick of time to save the dwarves from burning trees, or to win various battles, or to rescue Gandalf at least twice. Then there's that special meaning that you have to wait for that will fall on the map or the keyhole. And we could go on and on. The entire progress of the war depends on each thread of the broken fellowship, initiating an entire chain of just-in-time miracles that bring all the resources to bear on the main battle just in the nick of time. Of course, the war itself is just a distraction to get the hobbits through the border in the nick of time to save the armies of the West. Oh, and of course, the eagles have to rescue Frodo and Sam with lava just in the nick of time because, well, that's what eagles do. So, enough about Tolkien's sense of time. But a lot of our technology is about timing too. When we first redesigned Perl, we were worried more about space than about time. We noticed Perl 5 had way too many globals, and globals are just generally bad news. So for Perl 6, we worried a lot about hanging every object on the right peg, as it were. Otherwise, the dwarves could be slightly mixed up. Different things belong in different lexical scopes, or file scopes, or dynamic scopes, or interpreters, and threads, meta objects, describing classes, or in various other places. But later we also started thinking about having things happen at the right time as well. The progress of compilation, linking, and execution has many different phases of activity. And it's important to get things at the right time. Each of these phases naturally wants to be able to schedule various activities when it's appropriate. To be sure, Perl 5 already had established 4 main phases, 2 of which were actually stolen straight out of the Auth programming language. Since these run at various phases in the program, we ended up calling them phasers. So when they are triggered, we can gleefully call it firing a phaser. Thank you, Captain Kirk. The begin phaser is fired off as soon as possible the moment the construct is done parsing. We actually rarely use it in practice since there's usually more specialized ways to declare things that the compiler needs to know as soon as possible, such as the post-fix declaration that you saw earlier. All declarations are basically happen at begin time. We call begin an escape hatch. You don't really want to use it, but it's there if you need it as a last resort. And is fired off as late as possible when the program is shutting down at exit time. In between those, check and init run at the end of the official compilation and at the beginning of the official runtime. Often these run back to back, but if you pre-compiled something and used it later, that check might happen days or months before the init. These 4 phases we inherited from Perl 5, but we also have enter and leave. In Perl 6, you can schedule events when we enter or leave any scope. Related to those are other phases for capturing the transactional results of a scope. And control flow events related to loops or exceptions. These are convenient for built-in scheduling, but for user-defined concurrency and scheduling, we've got promises and channels like Go that compose very nicely. We've got reactive programming like C#, which we call supplies. And if you don't know what that is, it's sort of the opposite of laziness. With a lazy list, you run code only when somebody pulls a new value from it. With supply, it's push semantics instead. You run code when somebody pushes the value down the supply. These high-level primitives have proven to scale well in practice, and together with our hyperoperators and feed operators, we really feel like Perl 6 is ready to deal with complicated computations on multi-core and many-core processors. Hyperoperators are also very good, but on the other end of the unit spectrum, we have lazy lists. This makes it quite easy to represent infinitely large concepts without imposing arbitrary limits. For instance, here's the scary one. This is how you write a Fibonacci sequence most idiomatically in Perl 6. It just says it's a constant, happens to be an infinite constant, and it's defined as 0 followed by 1 followed by whatever plus whatever. And you keep going, so whatever. It's a little mind-blowing to define an infinite constant, I'll grant you, but the more mind-blowing thing is that the expression there is actually evaluated at begin time, but the resulting list is really a constant as far as the compiler is concerned. So the timing is the point. Although the expression is evaluated at begin time, because it's a constant, that constant is a lazy list. So the values themselves are calculated on demand just when you need them. Maybe I can show you that. So if I just subscript this with a slice and ask for the first 20 Fibonacci numbers, it just calculates that many. If I then come and ask for more, it calculates more of them. There's other things you can do. This is, a very abstract one. Unless you look at flowers and things, you don't see Fibonacci numbers that much in your life. But if you want to say that's basically all the factorials up to, well, it gave up at about 100 factorial, I think, on the output. It actually will calculate it as well. So that's like partial results of an infinite product. More useful is, you want all the odd numbers, the even numbers, and these like turn out to be useful in subscripts if you want all the evens or odds. It can figure out geometric sequences, powers of 2 there. But most of the uses of the lazy lists are actually fairly mundane. So you might say, declare some variables, and you just want to initialize them all with the same value. So 42 XX star, say $C. And it just makes as many 42s as you need on demand. So you don't have to stay 40, you don't have to count your things you're initializing. It just does the right thing. Lots of things like that. So laziness is not really just for lists in Perl 6. Many other things work better if you delay them at the appropriate moment as well. So we have lazy context. In Perl 5, list context versus scalar context is determined at compile time. And sometimes that gets a little bit wonky. And this turns out to be one of those overspecified things. In Perl 6, context doesn't really happen until your argument list is actually bound to the function's parameter list. You can return lazy failure from a function without necessarily treating it as an exception. If we test the return value, it looks just like an undefined value, and we can use the normal control flow to handle the situation. But if we ignore the return value, or use it as a real value, or try to, then we'll get an exception thrown with all the original information about why and where the error occurred. So we kind of get the best of both worlds, depending on our preferences for handling error conditions. And this tends to result in much cleaner code. Finally, as we mentioned earlier, the Perl 6 parser doesn't actually know what sublanguage you're going to use until you declare it. So it computes these lazily and mutates your language on the fly and writes your lazily, only when you know it knows you need it. So yeah, we've heard a lot about timing in Perl 6 too, which finally leads us into today's little matter of timing, which is why you're here, Billy. I have an announcement, says Bilbo. Dear gentle hobbits, I commend you. We've been all waiting very patiently for an old hobbit to say something interesting. So I'd like to say something interesting. been that Perl 6 would be ready by Christmas. We just wouldn't say which one. And every year, some small number of people would miss the joke and think we were really planning to have Perl 6 out there by Christmas. And one or two would miss the joke intentionally and claim we were lying. But this year, I believe, along with my companions, that we have a pretty good shot at getting an official beta version out by my birthday in September. And an official version 6.0.0.0.0.0 ready by this Christmas. That's Christmas. That's an actual year. We've never promised that before. And we're not exactly promising it now. We're more like projecting and planning for it and hoping real hard and working on it a little too. But it's at least a pseudo-promise. Because, there's always caveats, of course. Let me list a few. Caveat number one, if I get run over by a bus tomorrow, I'd expect, I wouldn't be expecting anything. If I get run over by a bus tomorrow, you should expect the release to be delayed, maybe even by as long as a week or two. Second, we're all volunteers. Real life or real death can happen to any of us. Part of our culture in our community is that we require people to prioritize both themselves and their loved ones over the Perl effort, because that is more important than meeting an arbitrary time goal. So basically, it's not just me. Each of us reserves the right to die and screw the project up completely. That didn't come out quite right, but it did. Third, the definition of 6.0 is the test suite at the end of that time. Not all the blue sky features that are conjectured in the so-called design documents. We'll probably strip out all the tests that are not yet implemented, take whatever we have that's passing at that point, and call it 6.0. The rest of the tests will be passed along to be implemented by 6.1 or 6.2, etc. But we're getting quite confident that we are converging on a feature set that will support both long-term stability and long-term evolution. Fourth, there is no requirement that all current implementations of Perl 6 have to get there by Christmas. Only one needs to get there first, and the other implementations can tag along after. To that end, I'm telling our lead Rakudo devs that I would support a decision to concentrate on the more VM back end for the rest of the year, and ignore the other backends if they are hampering progress toward a stable set of tests for 6.0. That being said, we might well have the resources to bring multiple implementations up simultaneously, depending on who pitches in. But if not, based on performance and completeness, more VM is the obvious candidate to push to completion first and let the other VMs catch up as they can. We're kind of like Frodo and Sam in their final journey to Mount Doom. You will recall that they got rid of the orc armor and even their beloved cooking gear because those would have weighed them down too much. We're not quite that desperate yet. Fifth, while the implementation of Perl 6 is getting faster all the time, especially on more VM, our optimizer still is fairly rudimentary in spots. Last year, we focused mainly on performance, and that paid off hugely. At its current speed on more VM, Perl 6 is getting to be quite useful for a large number of tasks that are not heavily compute bound. I expect our Christmas release to be even faster, but please don't expect it to match Perl 5 speeds on any and every task just yet. As usual, performance will depend mightily on the nature of the task and the workload. We do already know that at least some things will run faster than Perl 5 because that's already the case. And part of our final tweaks this year will also result in speedups. But our primary goal for this Christmas is long-term stability and Frozen 6.0 test suite that will be the only official specification for the language. Sixth, well, what can I say? It's going to be 6. 6.0. Nobody in the right mind expects a .0 release to be anything perfect. Sure, we'll pass all the tests for 6.0, but the documentation may be a little bit hit or miss in spots. And certainly there won't be a camel book yet, or a butterfly book if that's what it ought to be. I suppose, and you should expect some bugs, including at least 1 or 2 major security bugs. All that being said, people who are using Perl 6 already are having a lot of fun with it. The good kind of fun. The sort of fun comics have, even when they're sitting in the regular battlefield. And we optimize for
fun, but sometimes our definition of fun is a little bit masochistic. Just think about how we schedule coming-of-age parties in real life. Do we do this when they're old enough to rent a car or sign a contract? No, we throw these parties for our kids in the middle of their teen years. Are they grown up yet? Not a chance. We intentionally schedule these coming out parties before the kids in question reach full maturity. Just because your daughter reaches age 16 doesn't mean she's ready to tackle all of life's little problems, like hormones and boys with hormones. So the coming out party is really a part of the process of growing up. Kids have to know that there's a lot more joy to growing up than just being ready to screw up your life big time. So what do we have left to do before Perl 6's coming out party? What do we need for charm school, that final polishing? You know, as Tolkien writes in his preface, after writing Lord of the Rings, he had to rewrite it largely backwards. It's that backwards business that's the kicker in any large project like this. It's your early decisions that are often the weakest. So we've identified 3 areas we want to nail down this year. And these are, not surprisingly, in some of the fundamental areas that concern exactly how this native types and characters work. First, we're doing what we call the grace of history factor. We've implemented most of the semantics we want for both lazy and eager list processing, but the current implementation is slower than it could be because it's renegotiating a lot of stuff more frequently than it used to. With the GOR, we'll negotiate once how a list is to be processed when the pipeline is set up, and then it can just do things directly. No, not that in a second. This stands for native shaped arrays. Actually, we're treating here and providing 2 related notions. We're overhauling the efficient processing of native types, and after that, we'll implement compact collections of those. So we can have all those efficient low-level vectors and matrices, mathematicians love to throw around and confuse the rest of us with. These collections also have the potential to be very fast under parallel computation. The last thing we'd like to nail down this year is normalization on graphene. And no, you won't find this term defined by consortium. It's where we in the Perl community think the future of Unicode processing is going. Unicode defines 2 major normalization forms already, NFD and NFC, which are fully composed or decomposed or composed. But it's composed only to the extent that Unicode already defines pre-composed characters. We can take it further. Many things a user would want to think of as a single grapheme do not in fact have a pre-composed character in Unicode, even in NFC. So there's these second-class languages out there, and we like to make them feel like first-class languages. If the user thinks of a sequence of characters as a grapheme, we'll compose a temporary grapheme character for them so that the characters are in one-to-one corresponds with what they think the characters are. Substrings work right on that sort of thing. Of the 3 things we're trying to do before Christmas, this one's probably the most risky, so we'll see how it goes. It could fail in any several ways, but that's okay. Shortly after we arrived here in Brussels, I saw a postcard greeting me in the shopping mall and said, "I failed good." Long ago, shortly after we announced the Perl 6 effort in the year 2000, I gave a talk on impossibilities. In that talk, I pointed out that Perl 6 was basically impossible, and we already knew it was impossible, but that we were going to do it anyway, and we absolutely expected to fail. But we also knew that it would be a very, very interesting failure and probably quite useful, because Perl 5 was already practical and useful despite its failings. So how can you fix what's wrong with Perl 5 and not get something better? At least different. So make different mistakes this time. Well, here it is almost 15 years later, and I can gleefully announce that we have successfully failed. And we've made plenty of interesting mistakes, but they're different mistakes. And we didn't get done everything we set out to do, which is not surprising. It was impossible. Quite apart from the various ideas we had that turned out not to be good ideas, we also had lots of good ideas we just haven't got to yet, or just don't have something to work on. Just for instance, we want our compiler to be fully bootstrapped on Perl 6 by now, but it's not. It's in a subset, a restricted subset called MVP. And that's good in a way. It lets us be more portable. We'll get to the fully bootstrapped, but it doesn't have to be from 6.0. You know, even Frodo failed in the end. After all the persistent endurance, the One Ring overcame him. And ironically, his quest was saved by the one person who at least wanted to destroy the ring at all. But that doesn't mean all that hard slogging leading up to it was bogus. All of the good intentions and persistent trudging helped too. So did the dependence on loyal friends. Like Sam said, I can't carry the ring, but I can carry you. I've been privileged to have such companions on my quest to use my own ring of power. In my case, that's the ring of language design power. To my mind, the highest goal of a language designer is not to control the thought process of the programmer in some kind of secure world, prison, or in some kind of newspeak where it's impossible to think bad thoughts. No, my goal is to design a language and the culture around the language to be self-defining and self-sustaining. The good language design gets out of the way of the user and lets him or her think of the problem in terms of problems should be thought about, not in the way the language designer demands. It's like Tolkien describing the difference between allegory and applicability. In his preface, he writes, other arrangements could be devised according to the tastes. He's talking about funny allegory when they're used. Now, the tastes or views of those who like allegory or topical reference. But I cordially dislike allegory in all its manifestations, and always have done so since I grew old and worry enough to detect its presence. I much prefer history, true or fake, with its very applicability to the thought and experience of the readers. I think that many confuse applicability with allegory, but the one resides in the freedom of the reader, and the other in the purpose domination of the author. It would be difficult to overrate the effect of Lord of the Rings on my life. It knocked me out of a college career and into wonderful world of literature. If I had not, if that not happened to me, I would never have met my wife. We would not have known linguistics or computers. We wouldn't have Perl 1 or Perl 6 or anything else inspired by Perl. The world would have been very different. So that's why I want to get rid of that ring. Tolkien is about renunciation of power. Even if I fail in my quest to get all the way to Mount Doom, I have the comfort of many dear friends each other returning, and I just hope they continue to like each other and look out for each other after I sail off to the great havens, as is certain to happen someday. The world takes away all our rings of power in the end, whether we give them up or not. Gee, that sounds like I'm planning to die soon. Quite the contrary. I plan to live to 1181. I haven't lost my figure yet, even if they've taken out various other bits of my insides. Maybe I'll even live long enough to design Perl 7. Now, wouldn't that be something? Of course, it has a downside. I'd have to rewrite this talk, because I'd also have to compare Perl 7 with the Silver Omen. And this talk is already too long, or maybe too short, don't know yet. The road goes ever on and on, down from the door where it began. Now far ahead the road has gone, and I must follow if I can, pursuing it with eager feet until it joins some larger way, where many paths and errands meet, and whither then, I cannot say. But chances are I'm going to a party. Thanks for listening to the Soul Talk.